Have you ever prayed with all your heart and only heard silence? You ask God for a sign, an answer, a little peace. But day after day, nothing seems to change, only silence. And you start to wonder, God, are you still listening to me? If you have ever felt this way, please don't leave, because God's silence is not what you think. Maybe you prayed for someone who was sick, for a relationship, for peace in your heart, and it feels like you are speaking to an empty sky. But what if that silence is not a rejection? What if Scripture holds something deeper, waiting for you to discover? Thousands of years ago, a man named David felt exactly like you. He did not hide his pain. He cried out straight to God. He said, my God, why have you forsaken me? By day I cry out, but you do not answer. By night I find no rest. Notice this. He felt abandoned, yet he was still talking to God. And here is what surprises many people. Jesus himself spoke these same words on the cross. The Son of God also tasted the Father's silence. So your pain is not unknown to heaven. It means when God feels far away, you are not alone. You stand right where the saints stood and where Jesus stood. Maybe you are waiting for a door to open, a job, a healing, and each silent day wears your faith a little thinner. But silence is not always absence. Sometimes it is where God is working in ways you cannot yet see. Through the prophet Isaiah, God reminds us why his ways often go beyond our understanding. My thoughts are not your thoughts, and your ways are not my ways. As high as the heavens are above the earth, so are my ways higher than yours. Think of a seed buried in the soil. On the surface, nothing seems to happen, but underneath, life is quietly growing. Maybe the silence you are carrying is not a punishment. Maybe it is part of a love you cannot fully see yet. And that quietly changes everything about how we wait. I want to pause for a moment and share something honest with you from my own journey. For a long season of my life, I prayed every night and heard nothing. Sometimes I thought God had forgotten me. I tried everything, mass, prayers, trying to live well, and still only silence. Maybe you have tried just as hard. But slowly, I noticed something that changed how I see silence forever. I realized I had only been praying for God to do what I wanted, rather than what He wanted. And that silence was teaching me to just stay with Him, even when I received nothing. Think of it this way. Silence and absence are not the same. A friend who sits quietly beside your hospital bed says nothing, yet never leaves. That is not coldness. That is the deepest kind of presence. Maybe that is exactly what God is doing. Not abandoning you, but staying quietly, closer than you think. And here's what I wish I had understood sooner. In the Bible, the people God used the most were often the ones who went through the longest seasons of silence. His silence was not abandonment, but a sacred preparation for the next great turning point in their lives. Abraham waited for a promise for 25 long years. Moses lived hidden in the desert for 40 years. Joseph was forgotten in a cold prison for years. They all passed through seasons of silence that seemed endless. For them, silence was not a sign that God was gone. It was where He was quietly preparing something greater within them. Looking back, the seasons when God was most silent were when my faith grew the fastest. I learned to trust not because I saw results, but because I trusted Him. Scripture says, "Wait for the Lord, be strong, and let your heart take courage. Wait for the Lord." Notice the word wait. Faith does not only live when God answers. The greatest faith is when you still believe, right in the middle of his silence. So when the sky is still quiet, what can you do? Keep talking to him, like David. Even your anger, your fear, your doubt, God is not afraid of your honest questions. Write down your prayers. One day, looking back, you will see he was quietly answering in ways you never expected. And please, do not walk alone. Stay close to people who share your faith. Sometimes God speaks to us through a friend, a community, a word at just the right time. You are not abandoned. You are accompanied, even when you cannot feel it. So today, if your prayer still has no answer, please do not stop. Keep trusting and keep walking, because what you call silence may be where God is closest to you. Thank you so much for staying with me until the end of this video. Everything I've shared today is simply my personal reflection as a Catholic. I'm not speaking on behalf of the church, and of course, our human understanding always has its limits. I just hope these thoughts inspire you to reflect on your own journey, so please take what helps you. For me, faith is a lifelong journey of learning and feeling. If something today touched your heart, please consider sharing it with someone who might be carrying a heavy burden right now. Your small act of kindness could be exactly what helps them feel a little less alone today. And before you go, I'd love to hear from you. Have you ever walked through a long season of God's silence? What helped you hold on to your faith and make it through? Please share your story in the comments below so we can support and encourage one another along the way.